Pushpin disclaimer: the following story is a fictionalized account inspired by real-life situations and themes of betrayal and emotional conflict. Names, characters, and incidents are the product of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. This story contains mature emotional themes such as infidelity, betrayal, and emotional trauma. Reader discretion is advised. My name is Adam, and until a few months ago, I believed I had the perfect life. I had a beautiful wife, a stable job, a cozy house in the suburbs, and most importantly, a bond like no other with my twin brother, Ethan. We were identical in looks but vastly different in personalities. Where I was calm, grounded, and dependable, Ethan was spontaneous, charming, and a bit of a drifter. But we always had each other's backs, always. Growing up, people couldn't tell us apart. We used to play harmless pranks in school by switching places, and we shared everything, from birthday cakes to dreams. Even as adults, we remained close. He'd drop by unannounced with beer and pizza, crash on my couch after long nights out, and talk about his hopeless romantic adventures. I used to envy his carefree lifestyle, and he used to admire my stability. It felt like we balanced each other out. My wife, Mia, adored him. At least, that's what I thought. She would often laugh at his stories, ask him for advice on cooking, and invite him over for dinner without even telling me. I never minded. In fact, I was proud of the relationship they shared. It felt like we were one big, inseparable trio. The kind of closeness you see in movies. The kind you never question. Looking back now, maybe I was naive. Mia and I had been married for 4 years. We met at a bookstore, both reaching for the same copy of The Great Gatsby. Cheesy, I know, but that's how our story began. She was everything I wasn't: artistic, spontaneous, emotionally expressive. She brought color into my structured life. I loved her. I trusted her. And I trusted Ethan more than anyone. There were no signs, no clear warnings. Life was moving forward, smoothly and without resistance. We were planning a vacation, saving up for a new car, even talking about having kids soon. Ethan, meanwhile, was still bouncing between short-term relationships and short-term jobs, but he never brought any drama into our lives. Not until that one night, when everything started to unravel. I had no idea the betrayal that was brewing right under my nose. No clue that the people I loved most were about to shatter my world into pieces. If someone had told me back then what was coming, I would have laughed in disbelief. But what happened wasn't a joke. It was real. Raw. And it changed everything. It all started with small, almost invisible shifts, those tiny cracks that you only notice when the whole thing falls apart. At first, it was Mia's sudden change in energy. She began pulling away emotionally, and I chalked it up to stress. She was an artist, working from home on commission paintings, and deadlines could get intense. But then I started noticing she wasn't as interested in spending time with me. Conversations grew shorter, her phone was always face down, and she'd flinch whenever I came near it. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I reached across the table to hold her hand like I always did. She pulled back and mumbled something about being tired. I laughed it off, trying to keep things light. But deep down, something shifted. It felt off. Then Ethan began showing up more frequently than usual. At first, I was happy to see him. He'd drop by with his usual charm, bring takeout, and entertain us with stories from his unpredictable life. But after a while, his visits became too frequent, always at times when I was just about to leave for work or right after I'd said I had errands to run. Sometimes, I'd come home and find him already there, sitting on the couch, chatting with Mia as if they lived together. Still, I brushed the thoughts away. It was Ethan. My brother. The person I shared a womb with. The idea that anything inappropriate could happen between him and Mia was laughable. And yet, I started making mental notes of the weird coincidences. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and noticed Mia wasn't in bed. I got up and found her sitting on the porch, whispering into her phone. When she saw me, she quickly hung up and said it was just a friend who needed advice. I believed her, or rather, I forced myself to. Around that time, I also noticed she had changed her phone's passcode. She used to let me borrow her phone freely, whether to Google something or take a call, but now she was oddly protective of it. I told myself, everyone deserves privacy. Don't be controlling. So I stayed quiet. But the doubts wouldn't leave. My gut kept whispering that something wasn't right. I started watching more closely. I noticed how she'd smile at her phone, then quickly put it away. I noticed how Ethan would sometimes glance at me with a strange look, something between guilt and pity. And then, the real crack came. Jake, one of my closest friends, pulled me aside at a bar one night. "Hey man," he said, almost hesitantly, "I swear I saw Mia the other day at the cafe on 5th Street, but she wasn't with you. She was with a guy that looked exactly like you." I laughed nervously. "Maybe you saw Ethan?" "Yeah, maybe," he replied, but there was doubt in his voice. It looked intimate. The laugh got caught in my throat. That night, I couldn't sleep. Jake's words echoed in my head like a warning bell I couldn't unhear. Was I just being paranoid? Or had I been blind for far too long? Jake's words haunted me for days. It looked intimate. That one sentence kept echoing in my mind like a curse. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be that husband, the jealous one who suspects his wife without evidence. The insecure brother who questions his own flesh and blood. But once doubt enters your heart, it spreads like poison. I tried to act normal around Mia and Ethan, but something had changed in me. I was no longer present in conversations. I was watching, analyzing, dissecting every glance, every smile, every touch. And the more I looked, the more I began to see what I had missed before. There were moments when I'd walk into a room and find them sitting too close together on the couch. They'd laugh a little too hard at private jokes I wasn't part of. Sometimes, when they thought I wasn't looking, I caught the tail end of a gaze that lingered just a little too long. But still, I said nothing. I kept trying to convince myself I was wrong. That I was imagining things. That maybe Jake just saw them at a friendly moment. That my mind was spiraling because of stress, or lack of sleep, or maybe even jealousy I didn't know I had. But one evening, that illusion shattered completely. It was a Saturday. Mia had told me she had to go into the city for a gallery meeting. Ethan said he was helping a friend move. I stayed home, just trying to clear my head. Around noon, I decided to grab lunch and headed toward a small Thai place Mia and I used to love. As I passed through the main street, I stopped dead in my tracks. Across the road, near a boutique coffee shop, I saw them, Mia and Ethan. Sitting outside. Laughing. Mia reached across the table to touch his hand. He smiled at her, not the way a brother-in-law should, but like a man completely, recklessly infatuated. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't confront them. I don't even know why. Something inside me refused to believe what my eyes were showing me. I turned around and walked away, feeling like a ghost in my own life. That night, I said nothing. Ethan didn't come home. Mia acted like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek and said her meeting went well. It was surreal. That moment in the cafe, her hand on his, replayed in my mind over and over. And still, I said nothing. I think a part of me still wanted to be wrong. I needed to prove it before I could accept it. Before I could confront them. Because if I was right, it wouldn't just be betrayal. It would be destruction. That night, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. No matter what it cost me. The next few days were torture. I was drowning in suspicion but pretending everything was fine. Every smile from Mia felt like a lie. Every joke from Ethan sounded hollow. I became an actor in my own home, rehearsing lines of normalcy while my heart beat like a ticking bomb. One afternoon, while Mia was out and Ethan hadn't shown up, I found myself pacing the bedroom, unsure of what I was even looking for. Something, anything, that would confirm what I already feared. That's when I noticed her old art supply box in the closet. She hadn't touched it in months, said she'd moved on from that phase. But for some reason, it felt like the right place to check. Buried beneath old brushes and worn sketchbooks, I found it. A phone. An old one, probably a backup, but still functional. And it had no passcode. My hands trembled as I turned it on. There were only a few apps installed, and one of them was WhatsApp. I opened it. Only one active chat. The contact name was saved as A. My initial. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The messages weren't vague. They were intimate. Explicit. There were inside jokes, confessions of love, shared memories that clearly didn't involve me. Pictures too, some innocent, some not. But what shook me the most wasn't just the betrayal. It was the voice notes. I pressed play. And I heard his voice. Ethan. I hate sneaking around like this. But I can't stop. I don't want to. I've never felt this way about anyone, Mia. Not even close. Another note from Mia, I know it's wrong. But being with you feels more real than anything I've ever had with Adam. God, what are we doing? I dropped the phone like it was burning my skin. It was no longer suspicion. No more doubt. It was fact. They were in love. Behind my back. In my home. Wearing my name like a mask to cover their sin. I sat on the floor, stunned, suffocating on 1,000 emotions. Anger. Grief. Disgust. And heartbreak, the kind that doesn't just break you. It breaks who you are. But I wasn't going to explode. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed proof no one could deny. So I made a plan. And the trap was about to be set. After I discovered the phone, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was calculated. Focused. Cold. If I confronted them now, they'd lie. Twist the truth. Say it was a mistake, a one-time thing, a misunderstanding. I needed to catch them in the act. I needed undeniable proof. So I planned the trap. I told Mia I had to go out of town for a 2-day work trip. She seemed relieved, too relieved. Ethan dropped by the night before I left, and gave me a casual slap on the back, asking if I'd be bored without them. I gave him a fake smile that probably looked more like a grimace. The next morning, I packed a bag, kissed Mia goodbye, and drove off. I didn't go far. Just checked into a cheap motel 5 miles away. Then I went back home, quietly, and set everything up. I had bought a small, discreet camera online, one that could be hidden inside a lamp. I placed it in the guest room. If something was going to happen, I had a strong feeling it would be there. That room had become Ethan's default crash spot. Too convenient. Too private. Then, I waited. And watched. The camera was linked to my phone. I kept the screen in front of me like a lifeline, hands shaking with each hour that passed. For the first half of the day, nothing happened. The house was quiet. Mia was alone. She made tea. Painted for a while. Sat on the porch scrolling through her phone. But then, just before 8 p.m., Ethan arrived. He didn't knock. He walked right in like he owned the place. My place. They talked in the kitchen for a few minutes. I couldn't hear them, but their body language said it all. Laughing. Touching. Her hand brushing against his chest. His fingers trailing along her arm. I wanted to scream. But I forced myself to keep watching. Then they went into the guest room. The door didn't close all the way, just enough to suggest privacy, not secrecy. I saw enough. Enough to end it. They kissed. And not like friends. Not like family. Not like two people making a mistake. They kissed like lovers. My hands clenched into fists as the image burned into my mind. Everything I had doubted, suspected, feared, it was now in front of me. Real. Alive. Cruel. I recorded everything. Saved the footage. Backed it up. My heart wasn't just broken anymore, it was shattered beyond recognition. But I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. Now that I had the truth, there was only one thing left to do. Confront them. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat alone in the motel room, staring at my phone screen long after the camera feed had gone dark. The footage was burned into my brain. My wife and my brother, tangled in each other, like I never existed. Like the life we shared had been nothing more than a stage set for their secret show. The next morning, I drove home. I didn't tell Mia. I didn't tell Ethan. I just showed up. When I walked through the front door, I could feel it in the air, tension, awkwardness, guilt. Ethan was in the kitchen, shirtless, drinking from one of my mugs like it was his own damn house. Mia was upstairs. I could hear the shower running. He turned, startled to see me. Adam? I thought you, spare me, I said flatly. Where is she? He froze. The casual charm drained from his face. She's upstairs. What's going on? I didn't answer. I walked past him, climbed the stairs, and knocked once on the bathroom door. Mia, I called out, my voice low but firm. We need to talk. Now. She opened the door a few moments later, wrapped in a towel, confusion on her face. But her eyes gave her away, panic. She hadn't expected me back so soon. She hadn't prepared her performance. I stood at the edge of the hallway, both of them looking at me now, Ethan behind me, Mia in front. And I said the words I had rehearsed all night. I know everything. Their faces went pale. What are you talking about? Mia whispered. I saw you, I said, my voice steady. On the camera. In the guest room. Silence. Then Ethan stepped forward. Adam, listen, don't, I cut him off, holding up my hand. Don't talk to me like we can fix this. Don't act like this is some misunderstanding. You knew. You both knew. Mia's eyes welled with tears. Adam, we didn't mean for this to happen. Stop saying that, I snapped. You meant for everything that happened. You meant it every time you snuck behind my back. Every time you lied to me. Every kiss. Every message. Every time you looked me in the eye and pretended nothing was wrong. Ethan looked broken, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I loved you, man, I said to him. You were my brother. My twin. I would have taken a bullet for you. And you stabbed me instead. Mia tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. I'm leaving, I said. I'll send you both the divorce papers and Ethan. I looked him dead in the eye. I never want to see you again. You're not my brother. Not anymore. And then I walked out. No shouting. No fighting. Just silence. The kind that comes after a storm when everything's been destroyed. When I stepped out of the house that day, I didn't just leave behind a home. I left behind everything I thought I knew. The silence afterward was heavier than I imagined. No more good morning kisses. No messages from Ethan asking if I wanted to grab a beer. No paint-stained mugs left on the counter. Just emptiness. At first, it felt like freedom. But then it felt like grief. I stayed at the motel for a week before moving into a small one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It was nothing like the house I had built with Mia. The walls were bare. The kitchen was always cold. But it was mine, and there was no one left in it to lie to me. I didn't block either of them, but I also didn't respond. Mia sent a few messages at first. I'm sorry. I don't know how things went so wrong. It was never supposed to be like this. Then came the voicemail, "I still love you, Adam. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, just don't hate me." I didn't hate her. That was the worst part. If I had, maybe it would have been easier. Ethan stayed silent. Cowardly, as always. But mutual friends started reaching out. Some had heard whispers. Some had seen things and, in hindsight, connected the dots. One even told me, "Man, I always thought they were a little too close." Where were those comments before everything exploded? Jake, my one real friend, checked in often. "You need anything?" he'd ask. "Want to grab a drink?" I said no the first few times, but eventually, I gave in. Sitting in a dim bar with someone who didn't pity me helped more than I expected. "Think you'll ever talk to them again?" Jake asked one night. I shook my head. What's left to say? They said it all with what they did. Therapy became part of my weekly routine. I didn't want to go at first, but I knew I couldn't carry all this anger alone. My therapist said something in our second session that stuck with me. "You're not healing from a breakup. You're healing from betrayal. That's a different kind of pain." She was right. Healing didn't look like what I expected. There were no grand epiphanies. No moment where the pain suddenly vanished. Just small victories, waking up without feeling numb, eating a meal without pushing it away, going a whole day without checking my phone for her name. One evening, months later, I stood in my tiny apartment, making dinner, music playing softly in the background. I looked around, no chaos, no lies, no pretending, and I realized, I was still standing. Still breathing. Still me. Scarred, yes. But no longer broken. Moving on wasn't an event. It was a process, slow, uneven, and often painful. After the confrontation, after the silence, and after the dust had finally settled, I found myself face to face with the question that haunted me the most: who am I without them? For so long, my identity was intertwined with theirs. I was Adam, the loyal brother, the devoted husband, the dependable man. When both of them betrayed me, it felt like they had not just broken my heart, they had ripped away my reflection. But as the months passed, I began to reclaim pieces of myself. I started painting again, not because I was good at it, but because it helped me express the rage, the sorrow, the numbness. I'd lost art somewhere along the way, buried it under daily routines and emotional compromises. But now, the canvas listened when no one else could. And every brushstroke felt like taking back control. One evening, I ran into Mia at the grocery store. It had been nearly a year. Her hair was shorter, and she looked thinner, tired in a way I recognized. She froze when she saw me. I gave her a short nod. No words. She didn't try to talk. She just looked down and walked past. It didn't hurt like I thought it would. Later, I heard through a mutual friend that things between her and Ethan had ended. Apparently, it didn't last long after I left. No surprise there, relationships built on betrayal rarely do. But by then, I no longer cared. Ethan never reached out. Not once. Not even after the divorce papers were finalized. I used to think I needed closure, a confrontation, something. But over time, I realized, some goodbyes come silently, and that silence is its own kind of peace. The turning point came 6 months later. I met someone. Not in a dramatic, sweeping way, no slow-motion moment, no perfect sunset. Just a conversation with someone real. Someone kind. Someone who asked about me without an agenda. We went for coffee. Talked for hours. Laughed. And when I walked her to her car, I didn't feel guilt or fear. Just possibility. That's when I knew I had survived the worst kind of betrayal, and I was still capable of love. Still capable of hope. Now, every day isn't perfect. There are still scars. Still nights when I lie awake wondering how I didn't see it sooner. Still moments when a song or a scent brings it all flooding back. But I no longer live in that pain. I visited occasionally, like a landmark of a battle I won. The betrayal was real. But so was the healing. And today, I'm not the man who was cheated on. I'm the man who walked away, rebuilt himself, and refused to let two people define the rest of his story. 1.